Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So we're here back in the garage again. It's beautiful weather outside, so I've been in the garage all day. It's been super nice. So I've mentioned this airplane in a couple of videos briefly as it's hanging up here along with my jet hanger A4. This is a jet hanger F-86 Sabre, and I built the A4 and the Sabre at the same time. Kind of both built them both side by side, same step at the same time, just to knock them out. So I got both airframes pretty much done, but I hadn't done any of the equipment mounting or anything yet. Obviously the servos aren't in, nothing's been permanently hinged or anything yet, so I'm starting to work on that finally. I've just kind of caught the bug after a long hot summer and not really doing much in the garage, so that, and I was gone for 2 months, so I was overseas. So this is my second jet hanger Sabre. These are awesome flyers. So what I'm doing right now is I'm getting the landing gear all set up in this thing. So these are Robart low profile units. These are actually the 85 degree, not 90 degree. And they're cambered in just a little bit, but not bad. They're pretty close. So I'm getting in the, so you buy these struts, they come super long. You gotta figure out what length you need, cut them down, do all that stuff. These are JP brakes. I believe these are the 4mm pin, and I had to use a brass tube as a spacer, which worked out pretty well. Let's see, I still have to do balsa wood in the wheel wells and shear webs in here. For the nose unit, I'm actually going to use, this is one of my dad's old units. I have another one I might use. This one's kind of hammered, but these are the old ROM retracts, which is what this airplane was designed around. So this will go up here. So right now I'm in the middle of getting my nose strut all cut down. So this is a Robart Robo Strut's a 3/8 Robo Strut. This is actually a Freewing F-14 wheel, which is super nice, aluminum with ball bearings. And then, so this is the piece. The nose gear or nose strut in the Sabre is really short. So in order to make this work, you have to do all kinds of mods to like shorten it up enough to where it's the right length. Kind of the same thing on these ones. So I actually modified these little tabs down in here, the little stops for the scissors, to extend them. So when they come out of the package, they're about like this. I think they're 0.6 of an inch, and I got them to 0.85 of this showing at full extension. The reason why is it needed to get past these little bulkheads. These are to stiffen up the wing if you put flaps in the airplanes. So there's the only structure holding the back of the wing on is this little section here and this section here. And so if there's no former in there, this gets real weak. So there's a former across there, and I can't cut the whole thing out for the tire to go down. So I had to get it, so when they fold down, I had to get it far enough towards the center to where it would clear that while being in the right location out here. So I do have to get some softer springs, because in order for this thing to sit on the ground properly, these struts need to be compressed about that far. We're just a little bit left in the compression stroke. So anyways, so that was kind of a pain. What you do is you take the scissors off and you actually grind those little stops until it'll allow the scissor to open up. So you do that, and then I had to shorten the springs, and then because I wanted them softer, but these are still too stiff, so I got to find some different springs. Same thing for the nose gear. I got to find a real soft spring for the nose. There won't be much weight on the nose gear, so because the CG is really close to the mains, so this needs to have a real soft spring in it, otherwise it will never even move. So I got to do that. Still lots of work on the model left to do, but most of the big stuff's out of the way. So like everything's been set up for hinges, they're just not glued in. So there's the tail on top of the little Texan. It's kind of funny. Same thing with the stab. Stab's all done. And like I said, the A4 is in the exact same boat. So it's waiting for retracts and everything to get hinged and all that. The fan mounts are already in this model. So I don't have to do that, but I have to do all the servos and all that stuff. So anyways, I'll work on this nose gear, trying to get it short enough to where it looks right. And the reason why it has this is because I actually plan to run, let's see if I can find it over here. I plan to run a glow ducted fan in this, at least at first. So the unit I'm going to use is something that would have been used in these models back in the 90s. This is one of OS's last efforts at small ducted fan motors. So it's a really good motor. It's a OS 46 VX. So it's a super high revving motor. It's a Turbax fan, obviously, so it's a big fan. It's a 5-inch fan. You see how big it barely fits in the fuselage. It's crazy. But if you look up here, you can see how big it is compared to the inlet. So it needs extra air. Some of the air will come from the nose wheel well, and then most of it will come from here and the nose. So there's all open ducting inside. There's no duct. So anyways, this is the power plant. I've test run this. It is a screamer. It scared me when it came on the pipe. I was like ducking for cover for shrapnel to come flying out of that thing. This is my very poor collection of glow ducted fan motors. So anyways, I don't want to ramble on forever. So I'm going to start finishing up this nose strap. We'll get this mounted, and then I'll show you guys how the nose gear rotates and lays in the fuselage with the way Larry has this set up. So, yep, just give me a little time and we'll get all this stuff done. Okay, so in order to make the nose gear short enough for scale, he had to make the main body of it really short. The problem is with the insert in there, and that's to go from the strut to, so this is a little part that slips into the retract body that turns. There's a wire comes out of here. I gotta cut a piece of this off. This is my dad's old nose gear from his old Sabre. Gotta cut a piece of that off. It kind of like JB welds into this, or you could probably solder it. And then the other end goes into this, and then I gotta drill and tab this little insert right here to hold it onto that rod. The problem is when you shorten it up this much, it bottoms out and it's not all the way there yet. So now I have to go and shorten this a little bit so that way I can get full strut movement out of that. And then I got to find a much shorter spring with way less spring rate, so that way it's soft enough. So sounds easy, but takes a while to do all this little stuff. It's kind of a pain, but I'd rather do that than have a super long nose strut and have it look stupid on the ground. So okay, now I've cut enough off to where it'll go all the way down. So got to find a little spring, because now it's not very deep anymore, so the spring will stop right about here, and then on the top side it stops about here. So I might try this Freewing one, see if that's soft enough. Alright, so I finally got this all done. Way too much to show on camera, but the strut's all done. Might need a softer spring yet, but that'll do for now. So basically the way this setup works is the arm, this isn't locked by the way. The arm, you do the arm at like a 45-degree angle, and when it goes down, it'll hit this striker plate right here and start twisting. And so now the arm is at a 45-degree angle that way, and it makes the tire flat when it sits in there. And when it comes out, you have your cables for your steering, and once they get tight, it'll be straight. And then they go slack, and then it drops in. So what you'll have is you'll have your steering servo over here, so the cables are going that way. So that way when they're tight, you're going forward obviously. Anyways, I played with a bunch of different stuff. I ended up modifying all kinds of things, but you can basically make this work with most units as long as the steering arm is something like this. Even if it's not, you can modify it. On my first Sabre, I used a Springer nose unit. It was totally different, and I was able to still make it work. So it's finally done. Huge pain in the butt. I was way off on my gear door opening, but it has to be at least that long to clear the fork or the scissors down there. So it's actually narrower than scale. I think the scale is a 1/4 inch wider, and it's a huge door on the real one. So anyways, like I said, I might do doors in this thing at some point. I really don't like having this giant hole open down here. I mean, this will be covered up because I'll have the little doors up front, which are accordioned. There's a 2-piece little door, and it folds when the gear's down. So when the gear's up, you're just going to have that, which still isn't great. Not a huge deal to make a door. Put it on a servo, open and close. Even with these back here, I might still even just do this front door at some point, but at first I won't bother because let's get it flying. But yeah, so that's that. I do need to find, like I said, some softer springs for the mains, so that way it needs to sit about right here, and it'll still have some travel left, but it's way too stiff to drop down that much, even if you put weight on it. So anyways, my goal was to get this thing on its gear tonight, and pretty much got there. Like I said, I still have to do balsa wood in here. So pretty cool model though. Like I said, I might put a turbine in this at some point, probably like a Zyquay 45 or a K45 if they can ever get the K45s figured out without having issues. So I know some guys don't, some guys do. Even a K30 would probably fly this thing pretty well, honestly. With the glow ducted fan, it's probably only going to weigh about 9 pounds, maybe 9.5, so pretty light. With a turbine, it would probably be less, actually. There's just not a lot of room for fuel unless you put just a huge tank right in front of the turbine. So, and even then, it's way for the CG, which I'm not a big fan of. So let me flip this thing over real quick. So, unlike my T38, which looks terrible inside, I really tried my best to keep this thing super clean with all my glue joints. I tied these in with fiberglass, top and bottom, little fillets of epoxy. Same thing up front. Try to keep it real nice, clean. It looks kind of crappy because this is the primer you're seeing. It looked really good before I primed it. I might end up painting the inside just so it looks nice, but anyways, let me put the fan in real quick. You can see how this scoop right here works. I tried a lot to keep the hatch area real clean looking. It fits pretty well. I made some little dowels, some little carbon fiber pins. That's just tape, doesn't need to be there. To help align everything when you drop it in. So I need a hatch latch still, obviously, but try to keep it to where the gaps are all nice and clean. Did a lot of body work around the hatch to make it look good. So anyways, pretty happy with that. Same thing on the A4. I tried a lot, really hard to make it cleaner than my traditional standard sloppy kind of build. So with the T38, it's real hard to get away from that. With a foam build like that, it's just not going to look as nice as a composite airplane inside. I've always been kind of self-conscious about the inside of that airplane. Looks like crap, but this one hopefully will look pretty nice and clean. Alright, so I don't have it screwed in, obviously, so I'm just holding it. You can see the fan kind of goes right up to the wing right there where I have the kind of cut out in the wing. And then if you look on the side, there's not a lot of room. Basically, this just barely fits under the hatch. So the tailpipe comes off of here and just barely clears this. Kind of the old way of thinking back then was put a big a fan as you can possibly fit in the airframe. And they weren't wrong. I mean, that's pretty much what they had to do back then. So the fuel tanks are a saddle style, and they'll sit right here on the sides of the fuselage. You pretty much have to silicone them in, so they don't get sucked into the fan. So they actually kind of help form a duct that kind of takes up some of that space on the side of the fuselage. So like I said before, you'll also get some auxiliary air coming through here, then obviously the big scoop down here. So all the radio stuff, like the steering servo, will be off to the side over here. And then there's actually a little duct that goes in the front to about right here. And they'll probably mount the receiver up on the side and the receiver pack over here. So it'll probably have a remote mixture valve too, with a servo on it somewhere, probably up in here. So it gets pretty crowded in here, but this is about as simple as it gets for a glow ducted fan setup. So it's a little tight getting everything in, but once it's in, shouldn't be too bad. And these are pretty good little motors, so we'll see how it goes. If it's too much of a pain, I'll probably fly it a dozen times and then put a turbine in it or something. But these old glow ducted fans are really cool, so I'm trying to kind of keep the spirit alive, if you will. I grew up around these things with my dad, and they're just neat and different. No one does them anymore, so it's kind of cool to have something that no one else has. But anyways, hopefully the next video on this one we'll see some more progress, but pretty happy with the gear. Turned out pretty sweet. So anyways, hope you guys liked it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.